We might have a visit from the president.
You need to be swift. We're going to blow him straight to hell.
You know, this is the first PBS drama in about 10 years, and everybody thinks of PBS, they think of British dramas and things, and this could not be more American, actually, right?
We wanted to tell a great American story. PBS wanted a great American story on its air, and somewhere in the world of the Civil War, we thought that we could find it.
But this is an unusual part of the Civil War, because it's not what we think of as a Civil War show. It's more other things.
Right. Well, that was a big part of the conceptualization at the beginning also, was to find some of the untold stories of the period. So it was never meant to be a story about battles or the military aspect of the war. And the real linchpin for us into it, that gave us really a broad spectrum of characters and kinds of stories that we could tell, was this town of Alexandria, Virginia, which is a northern occupied southern town with at its nexus a southern owned hotel that's commandeered and turned into a Union hospital. And through that we were able to find lots of interesting stories, largely based on historical figures and facts of not only nurses and doctors, but contrabands who are, that was the term used for runaway and free slaves coming to Alexandria as a sort of portal into freedom.
When you take on a role like this, you know, have you ever done anything set in the Civil War era before?
No, I have nothing in the Civil War. I did, years ago, I did a Custer miniseries called Son of the Morning Star, which was based on a book of the same title. So that was shortly after the Civil War. But I have not. And I agree that what's unusual about it is when we think of Civil War material on film or in television, we usually think of battles. And this examines many other things than that, and also what the result is on an occupied city, which I found really interesting too.
One of the things that attracted me to the project was that we were talking about the heartbreak of what Black men and women were going through, and Black women who escaped slavery, you know, what their circumstances were. I think in our compulsory education, we all have had a Civil War course, but rarely do you go in depth with what that period was. But luckily, in preparation for this, I went to Juilliard, and there they offered, on a whim, a course on slavery, the Civil War, and Reconstruction. And I was introduced to Pulitzer Prize-winning historians like Eric Foner, and I actually called him in prep for Aurelia because it was vitally important to me to tell this story as truthfully as I could. And even though I had this incredible resource, the experience of what she went through and what women, you know, who had that circumstance, what they went through, it was so difficult and outrageous. By the end of the process, it changed me. As an actress who's doing another television series that is a polar opposite, you know, in character and in circumstance, it was vital to be as subtle and as truthful in my storytelling as I could be.
We shouldn't.
You want my friendship, don't you?
I don't know much, but I do know what hurt looks like.
Don't!
One of the things that attracted me to the character was he's this very glorious kind of bundle of contradictions. So he was raised in Maryland, which is a border state, and he grew up on a plantation with slaves. So he's not an abolitionist. He's fully on the wrong side of history in that regard. Yet he's a Union loyalist who works in a Union hospital, and he's incredibly progressive around medicine and anesthesia, and he really is on the leading edge. He's trained in Europe. So, you know, I think a lot of TV writing is encouraged to go a little broad in terms of like a defining characteristic. Like, it's great to lean into these contradictions and play the kind of spiky, you know, and then watching him change as it goes. He's an idealist who's hardening into a cynic, but then his idealism pokes through. You can see him softening, and his consciousness is awakening around the racial situation in the country. So everything, all the kind of meaty stuff you look for in a part as an actor, this was just there.